Well, I think it's just stupid because the pledge is for America and soldiers fight for that pledge to be said in English, so I think it should be said in English.
I just didn't stand up, and they just told me I was disrespectful, and I said that they should speak it in English.
A couple of students at a New York high school reacting to the Pledge of Allegiance being recited in Arabic. The school district apologized for having students engage in that recitation, and that's a subject fit for our panel. Let's welcome them in now. On the left, TV and radio commentator Ellis Henican joins us from Newsmax New York, and of course from Washington, D.C. on the right, Republican strategist Phillip Stutts, the founder and CEO of Go Big Media. Now, according to the school district, the pledge was part of a National Foreign Language Week. Phillip, does that make a difference? I don't know if Phillip can hear me there. I tell you what, we had a little problem with the transmission here. Let's try it again. The guys at the school district said, "Hey, it's Foreign Language Week. That's why we had a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance in Arabic." Should that make any difference?
Well, you've heard of that, the old videos from 20 years ago called Girls Gone Wild. I think this is politically correctness gone wild on both sides. I said the libertarian in me says that if a school district wants to celebrate Foreign Language Week and say this in Arabic, it's their right. The parents have a right to complain, but you know, what I found really interesting is that school kids, the students were tweeting about their principal and about the school and disparaging them. Maybe Elliot and I grew up in this a different age, but I would be pretty much taken to the woodshed by my parents if I was sitting there going crazy on my principal on social media. It's a different age, it's a different time. There's a lot of political correctness on both sides here. I don't really know what to make of it other than that.
Well, what about it, Ellis? Perfectly okay to do the pledge in Arabic?
Boy, perfectly okay. In fact, it ought to be encouraged, I would say, and not just in Arabic, but in French and Swahili and German too, if we can. Listen, if you can get kids to talk foreign languages, that is very difficult. I credit the school district for that. But why do they have to fold here? Because a bunch of kids will bellyache, and those two kids you just showed, they remind us that there are dumb kids in high schools everywhere, including in my state of New York.
Well, let's think about that for a second, because the students have come in for some criticism here on both sides of the panel. Couldn't it be argued the district was being somewhat provocative? Of all the languages to choose, Arabic. You mentioned German. You could say Norwegian has a melodic tone. Swahili. What do you think prompted Arabic to be utilized, Phillip?
Yeah, you know, well, if you studied this district a little bit, there have been complaints over the years from Jewish families saying there's a lot of anti-Semitism within the district. Again, I think the district has every right to do what they want to do, and if the parents want to stand up and say that's not how we want it conducted, they have the right to complain. I keep going back to why were the students calling out their own principal, and how were they getting away with that? Again, my parents would never have stood for that.
So, Ellis, sounds like Phillip's got more of a problem with the use of social media like Twitter on campus than perhaps the pledge. Maybe that's another issue entirely, but it seems to me that kids, either sotto voce or among groups, have always been critical of faculty and administration. That's kind of a given in just about any high school anywhere in America.
Yeah, we bellyached about our teachers and principal for sure. Listen, you know the great thing about this, JD and Phillip, it's got people talking. You know, and if that's the reason they chose Arabic, because it would produce a conversation about what it means to be an American in the increasingly diverse country that we live in, we do have to learn to deal with people of a whole lot of different cultures and backgrounds. And the idea that we ought to be outraged or prejudiced or snarky about it is silly. We ought to be open to it and welcome all these different people. You know what? Whether you like it or not, that's the future.
Well, my thing is, though, is that we do a lot of talking in this country, and we do a lot less dealing with it in this country. And so if we want to deal with it, I'm all in on that. But more talking from the families or from the kids or from the school system itself doesn't seem to be solving the problem.
Well, one topic we may have to take up someday is just how we talk to each other. Should we embrace a polyglot of languages and abandon conversational English? Should we see a bilingual nation, or should we have assimilation as part of immigration? That's a topic we can take up, but I tell you what, I want you two gents to hang in with me, because coming up next, it's the language utilized in politics that has some senators upset with one another. We'll discuss it as the political panel continues here.
What is beneath the decorum and dignity of the United States Senate, I would say to the senator from Illinois, is for him to come to this floor and use that imagery and suggest that racist tactics are being employed to delay Ms. Lynch's confirmation vote. Such inflammatory rhetoric has no place in this body and serves no purpose other than to further divide us.
Senator John McCain demanding an apology from Senate Minority Whip Dick Durbin over Senator Durbin's comments that Republicans were putting Attorney General nominee Loretta Lynch at, quote, the back of the bus. Let's continue our conversation with our political panel. On the left, Ellis Henican from Newsmax, New York, and on the right, Phillip Stutts from Washington, D.C. Phillip, I kind of expect Democrats to go over the top with this thing. To have Senator McCain come to the floor is kind of like saying, you mean there's gambling in Casablanca? I'm shocked. Shouldn't we just expect this kind of rhetoric from the left? That's what they do.
Of course it is, and Dick Durbin is one of the richest men in this kind of rhetoric there is in the United States Senate. Remember, this is the same Dick Durbin that voted against Condoleezza Rice's nomination on the 40th anniversary of the March on Selma. This is the same Dick Durbin that when I was in the Bush administration back in 2001, voted against Miguel Estrada to the circuit court and put out a memo that said he was dangerous because he was Latino. Now he is using this rhetoric when basically Senator McConnell, Leader McConnell, is using a procedural move to try to get certain legislation through, and then he's going to put this on track, and she will be probably, most likely, she's going to be approved. It's just a delay tactic to try to get some Republican legislation through the Senate.
What about it, Ellis?
I guess the problem is only on the left, right? The Republicans and conservatives always have very measured and respectful ways of discussing these things. Give me a break. I mean, it's absolutely true that there hardly is any decorum in the Senate anymore. But to suggest, Philip, that it's only one side of the aisle, and JD, that it's only one side of the aisle that does that is I would say, half-sighted. Now, the reality on Lynch, right? I don't think it has much to do with race. I think it has to do with the political maneuvering, but kind of an ugly version of political maneuvering, right? Everybody pretty much agrees the woman is qualified, right? There's nobody has come up with any horrible thing about her. She's an effective United States attorney with a long, distinguished career. She's being used as a pawn because Republicans in the Senate are mad about Obama's immigration actions, and so they want to torture her. The great irony is that it just keeps Eric Holder as Attorney General. I guess that's okay, isn't it?
Well, I think the challenge is that it's precisely because Ms. Lynch, despite her impressive resume, said that she thinks it's constitutional to continue this executive amnesty. So that's one of the problems that Ms. Lynch is having with confirmation. But Ellis, a human trafficking bill that has a lot of Democrat support, why not just go ahead with this? Why be so concerned to try to assuage the so-called pro-choice crowd and threaten the Democrat filibuster on that? Okay.
I'll tell you why, because it's being used as a pawn in the abortion fight, which has absolutely nothing to do with human trafficking, right? You've got these anti-abortion extremists who have never made their peace with Roe versus Wade, even though it's now been the law of the land for many decades, and they try and shoehorn these little abortion restrictions into things that have nothing to do with it. They got to stop doing that, and it's terrible that this trafficking legislation has been delayed. Pull that abortion plank out of there, it'll pass in 15 minutes.
Final 30 seconds to Phillip. But I guess Ellis was cool with Frank Lautenberg putting in Second Amendment killing language in appropriations bills. Your take, Phillip. 30 seconds.
I'm just going back to what Ellis started out with in our first segment, which is I'm shocked that Democrats are up in arms right now, that they would never do this if they were in the majority. I have a solution, though. Let's put a pithy hashtag on a Starbucks cup and we'll all be happy.
That's another topic we would discuss if time permitted. Unfortunately, that's the four-letter word we have to utter, and we're being civil about it. Time is up. Gentlemen, we thank you very much. Coming up, The Way I See It.